Hey Gobbet, you have another story for me? Gobbet glances up at the sound as you approach. A slight smile crosses her face. Hey, pal. She puts her hand on her hips, sending madness scurrying. Ready for your next lesson? Let's see. I want to ask you something else first. Yeah? She flings a tangled rope on her hair back over her shoulder. Go ahead then if you want to ask me, ask. Any thoughts on the last run? Gobbet's expression darkens and she flips some ropes of her hair back over her shoulder. You know, everybody says it's bad for them to back out on a job. What about if Johnson decides to lie and screw you over? Everybody seems to accept that as a standard procedure. Drives me up the damn wall every time. But I guess it's better to play it safe, count on your rep, and get the job done. I know why you made the call you did. I just wish I could have put a few rounds into Tegath as he was smugly sauntering off. She shakes her head, frowning. It just doesn't seem right, letting him getting away with playing with. Ugh. It just doesn't seem right, letting him get away with playing us like that. So what do you want to chat about next lesson? All right, good. This is one about people like Auntie Cheng and why we need them. There won't be a Q&A session after this story, but I want you to listen up. It's important. Alright, I'm all ears. Alright, so here's the upfront lesson. Fixers are important. You can't just go to a Johnson yourself and get a job. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. It's a bad idea all around. Okay? The reason why it's a bad idea to cut people like Auntie Cheng out is because you need someone to vet your clients. That's important, and it protects the whole team. Takes a deep breath, lets it out slowly. You remember the lesson from last time, the one about suing the shiny object? How could I forget? Well, after the run was over, we went back to the sinking ship for some R&R. Sui had told us the client would be sending a boat to collect the shiny object in the morning. All we had to do was keep the thing safe until the handoff. We were in a celebratory mood. We killed an evil wizard and stolen a priceless artifact, a good night's work by anyone's standards. Hono and Ygritte got good and drunk in a record time, so we went back to the cabin with the shiny object and I don't know, stare at it for a while or something. I retired to my cabin and crashed out. It'd been a long night. This boat's gonna show up and kill all of them, isn't it? I remember waking up to sounds. Yelling, maybe. I was groggy, and they were far away. I couldn't quite make them out. The clock said 4:30 a.m. People were always partying on the raft, playing loud music, shooting off fireworks, that kind of thing. So loud noises early in the morning weren't so unusual, but something else felt off, somehow. How so? It's hard to describe. An uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach, an elevated heartbeat. Rapid, shallow breaths. It was a lot like a panic attack, really, not the kind of thing you can sleep through. So I got up to investigate. If something was wrong, I wanted to know. And if it wasn't, I figured I might as well get into the party. I stepped out in the hallway, and my foot slipped. Came down hard, landed on my ass. And found myself sitting in a pool of blood. Well, that's not good. She shakes her head, grimacing. No, it was pretty bad. So it was pretty obvious by this point that something had gone horribly wrong. My first thought was that the shiny object might have, I don't know, unleashed something. After what I saw in the warehouse, it wouldn't have been surprised. I shook that off pretty quick, though. I knew what it was. Our client was playing us. He'd hired us to steal the thing, and rather than paying us for the job, he'd sent another team to take it away. So what'd you do? I got up and beelined to Malvina's cabin. She was the closest thing that the sinking ship had to a leader, and the strongest rat shaman on the raft. If the raft was under attack, that's probably what I would have done too. Yeah, seemed like the right thing at the time. If there was any retrieval of the team coming from the shiny object, they were strong enough to handle Sui. While he was holding it, what chance would I have at stopping them on my own? I figured that it was time to bring out the big guns. Malvina was the one I could get them from. I passed some pretty bad stuff on the way to Malvina's cabin. It was old man Shion's fault all over again. The torn out bodies, bloodstained floors. I saw people who'd been cut apart with machetes, scorch marks on their container walls. She bit her lip, grimacing at the unpleasant memories stewing in their head. Deep down in the pit of my gut, I could feel thrumming vibration of the shiny object. That heartbeat feeling that I had at the warehouse, it was back. It was stronger than ever. Whatever that rock was, it was awake. That'd be my cue to bail out. I wouldn't have wanted anything to do with that thing. I didn't either, believe me. But whatever was happening on the board, it was killing people. And messily at that. I didn't want to risk getting cut down on my way to a life raft. Besides, Sui's my friend and the leader of my team. I thought I had the chance to help him, so I took it. I sprinted down the last stretch of the corridor to Malvina's cabin. I can't tell you what a relief it was to put my shoulder on the door and feel it pop open. And go tumbling into that room. And then somebody smashed a gun in my face. It was Cadmus, my friend. He jammed the muzzle of his super warhawk into my cheek so hard it hurt. Then grabbed me by the belt with his other hand. I wasn't going anywhere. Just over his shoulder I saw Malvina. She didn't look amused. Some friends. Yeah, well, there was a lot of stress at the time, and I had just crashed through their door like a charging rhinoceros. She smiled weakly. Adrenaline and abject terror can make a girl do some stupid things, I'll tell you that. The smile on her face dies. She looks away. Anyway, it wasn't an attack. There were no hostile invaders on the sinking ship, and our client had nothing to do with what was going on. Turns out there was no client. Sui had lied to us, to me, because he wanted the shiny object for himself. What he wanted to do was take the sinking ship away from Malvina, so he used us to steal him something that he could use to foment a mutiny. She pauses for a moment, gathers her rats in her hands, and lifts them to her shoulders. They scurry over the leather of the coat and disappear into her hair. Well, that's a problem for sure. So the guy with the object straight up stole it. As it turns out, betrayal hurts, Seattle. Malvina felt it, and I felt it too. Sui had been like a friend, and I just risked my life to save his, like 4 hours ago, and he tricked me into helping him do something unthinkable. Why do you think he did it? Why all this over a heap of junk floating in a bay? I don't know. Maybe he'd gone toxic. Maybe he got ambitious and wanted to be the king of our little aquatic hill. He didn't discuss it with me first or anything. I'd be willing to bet that something had gone rotten in Sui long before we ever met. He was pretty damn good at hiding it. Maybe it happened recently. He could have been possessed. She holds up a hand. I don't know why he did it. Frankly, I don't care. The only thing that's important here is that he did. So what'd you do? What could I do? I didn't have a whole lot of options, and Cadmus was kind of on edge, like red-faced and screaming, so I opened my mouth and I fast-talked my way out of it. I started off by doubling down on the loyalty to Malvina, Cadmus, and the status quo of the sinking ship, swearing my undying friendship, you know the drill. I did a good job of it, but they still looked a little iffy. Iffy with a warhawk is bad, so I volunteered to prove myself by stealing the shiny object back from Sui. That follows, I guess. I mean, he only had it because of you, right? That was the idea, yeah. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I did inadvertently help to arm the bastard who was tearing my friends and neighbors apart. I didn't think I could have cleared my name without taking his weapon away again. It was a hell of a night. I don't want to get into too many of the gory details. Friends died. Hell, friends killed each other. It was brother against brother, all that jazz, and Sui's indiscriminate use of the shiny object let a lot of things into this world that shouldn't have been. Did you get a good view of them this time? Yeah? I wish I hadn't, but I did. I don't really know how to describe the things. They were like animals, but wrong. Too many tails, bones in the wrong places, huge open sores, that kind of thing. They were spirits manifested into physical form, I think. Most of them took the form of rats, swarms of insects, rotting things. All the old pestilence tropes. Sometimes there were colonies of things, all tangled together and moving as one. Not the sort of thing I want to see ever again. So, anyway, long story short, I got the shiny object back from Sui, and it wasn't easy, but I got it. And I took it back to Malvina. She put the thing on to better use than Sui ever did. She took to the thing like she'd grown up using it. We still lost dozens of people, and Sui's side lost more. But Sui's side lost more. Cadmus was critically wounded, but he pulled through. After the skirmish, Malvina held an assembly. She told everybody that there'd be new rules for life on the raft. Anyone who refused to follow them could leave, and if you broke them, you were done. The rules of the sea and all that. After the pronouncement, she turned on the surviving mutineers. Hondo was one of them. He'd been in Sui's plan the whole time. She didn't kill him, but she did exile him from the sinking ship. And for the people in our economic bracket, that was a good one-way trip to the walled city. I'd be willing to bet they're all dead by now. In the wake of Malvina's ultimatum, 5 survivors left the sinking ship. And I was one of them. Why'd you leave? I had to go. We may have washed the blood off the decks, but the energy of the sinking ship had changed. It wasn't the carefree haven that I loved anymore. It was, and as sensible as Malvina's rules were, I wasn't up to living under them. We parted on good but sad terms, and as you'd expect, we drifted apart over the years. It's funny. I hadn't even thought about Malvina or the sinking ship in years, not until I decided to teach you the previous lesson, and it all came flooding back in. She pauses, turns to you. That's the story. It's finished, but I want to circle back on the point that I gave you up front because it's important. We need Auntie Cheng to bring us work, that's obvious. But we also need her to keep us honest. To be sure that we, on the team, are playing straight with one another. Auntie Cheng's reputation rides on the legitimacy of the job she brings us, and that, more than anything, is why we need her. If we didn't have Auntie Cheng, or someone like her, we'd eventually tear ourselves apart. It happened on the sinking ship, it could happen again in Haoi. So, anyway, that's the lesson. If you got any follow-up questions, go ahead and ask them. What happened to Sui? That walking colostomy bag was already dead, eaten by his own monsters after I took the shiny object away. Turns out, he wasn't much good at controlling them without it. Her voice fills with grim satisfaction. He didn't even live long enough to watch his mutiny fail. What did Malvina do with the shiny object? Well, first she used it to get rid of the things that Sui had let loose, then she put it away for safekeeping. It's probably still there on the sinking ship, ensconced in some shrine or other, held under lock and key. At least she's keeping it safe. She shrugs. I'd have preferred if she ditched the thing, but in the end, that wasn't my choice to make. From what I heard, she's still in power over there, so I guess that it worked out okay. Thanks, Gobbet. Sure. And Seattle, thanks for listening. These lessons are for your benefit, but I think they help me too. It's nice to be taken seriously every now and then. I'll look forward to the next one. Yeah, me too. Now get a move on. I got Gobbet things to do. Gobbet things to do. Well, that took a dark turn for sure. We knew at some point we were gonna find out a reason for why the previous crew wasn't around anymore, and I guess now we have our explanation. All right, Isabel might as well be our next stop on the what's sort of like our final lap around the boat before we start the final mission. Handyman, you're back. She doesn't bother turning. You need something? Any thoughts on the last run? I hate to be a downer over the last mission, but I'm starting to wonder if Kylie Cheng is slipping a little. The entire reason we give her a cut is to make sure the people we hire don't have ulterior motives and won't screw us over. Kylie dropped the ball on this one hard. Actually jives really well with the whole point that Gobbet just gave us. At least she won't be pissed at us for scrubbing the job. I mean, we finished it, to the letter, and got a crappy payday out of it too. I hope Kylie's happy, because I'm sure not. We ever get put in a situation like that, I say we take the data and run, fence it ourselves. There's just too much risk for not enough reward otherwise. Anything else you want to know? Question about the walled city. Never mind, we're done with the walled city. Drop any time. Yeah, we're definitely running out of dialogue for this little crew. We might be genuinely done with them. Hey, woo. The clinking of metal, followed by grunts from hard exercise, erupt from the hatchway of Wu's cabin. The first thing you notice when you enter is that a renewed cleanliness. The food cans are gone, and his equipment is neatly laid out in his bedding. Everything's in its place. The next thing you notice is the smell. It's like a middle school locker room in July. Wu finishes his jumping jacks and grabs a towel off his bunk. His exposed flesh gleams with perspiration. Hey. Alright, so he's finding his place again. This place was all a giant mess before, because he's losing his mind over the loss of one of his sort of controlling forces, and the fact that his entire life got flipped over. But now, we're getting sort of experience him reset back into his default state, where he's readjusting. Woo, open a porthole, this place reeks. Do you see a porthole, Grotto? This is an interior cabin, it's not the best for ventilation, but I don't think you came by to check on my hygiene. What's your deal? Any thoughts on the last... Nope, he wasn't on the last run. Still thinking about Edward's saying? He rubs a towel under his arms. compartmentalized him. Edward's saying is a topic on a file cabinet in my head. I'm only thinking about Raymond right now. Flipping out over what happened to him. What really happened to him. Still think he's alive? More than ever. Raymond's alive, I'm sure of it. He continues stretching. We're getting close to the plastic-faced man, Duncan. I know. I haven't stopped thinking about him since we first saw that video. The one where he attacked Raymond in the tea house. He wipes down one side of his neck with the towel. Folds it, wipes down the other side. Listen, Grotto. I'm not going to press you to take me with you when you head out to snatch him. You take the right people for the job, and then you get the job done, okay? But I want to be there when you interrogate him. I want to hear what he has to say with my own ears. Are you going to have a problem with that? Of course not. Good. We're brothers. I'd hate to have to mess you up. He flashes his pearly whites. Like I said, you can take me with you on the run or not. It's your call, but I intend to be there for the fun part. We'll both have fun with Mr. Plastic Face. Good. Let's go to town on him together. He drops his towel in his bunk. This is the guy who knows what the hell is going on, and the one who may have killed Raymond. I'm gonna squeeze him until I find out what his fucking ancestors know. We'll do what we've got to do to get the answers we need. Damn right. You told me you were resentful when I took off, but maybe it was about how Raymond handled the thing with Double Tray. Nah, it was about you disappearing for 8 years without a word, but we're past that now. Wu pulled his right elbow across his chest with the left hand, gets a good stretch. But that was messed up. That was a messed up night. A lot of things happened. And I wouldn't be surprised if some, I don't know, emotions got jumbled together. Stuff with the old gang? That's part of it, sure. I'm still carrying that around, but mostly it was about Raymond. We've butted heads before. I'd broken plenty of his rules in the past, but I'd never seen him so disappointed. I'm not sure why. Never figured it out. Why don't you walk through it from the beginning? Start with when Lockjaw showed up at Ray's house. Wu pulls a left elbow across his chest and lets out a little groan. So this was 2045, years after the summer we moved to the Raymond. We hadn't seen DT or Lockjaw or any of the gang in forever. Raymond's rules. No contact with our hoodlum friends, no visiting the squat to check on them. Right. He insisted on a clean break. Exactly, he wanted us to focus on our future, not bog down in our past mistakes. The way I remember it, we woke up in the middle of the night, and there was Lockjaw standing in our room covered in blood. The first thought was that Raymond was going to kill us. Can you imagine? There's a teenage Salish Indian covered in blood in our bedroom, and my first thought was that I might get in trouble for it. Raymond was an intimidating guy when we were young. Isn't that weird? I towered over him, and it just didn't matter. Little man just had that way of looking at you, that tone. Wu throws his elbow behind him, twists at the waist. So Lockjaw's bleeding all over the bedroom, and you're yelling, "Where's DT? What happened to Double Tray?" 5 minutes later, we're dressed in black and on our way to the Barrens. What the hell were we thinking? We were thinking that we owed those guys. DT was one of the guys that took us to the teen center and introduced us to Raymond. Man, that was a messed up night. The 162s had overrun the Leary squat. Better positioned to take out the nukes. Benzo and Tusk were bleeding out. Hernandez's family was half-eaten. Lil Joe, that streetwalker with the electric false eyelashes, was... What? Electric false eyelashes, what a thing to hear. Was lying on the floor in 2 parts. But we got Double Tray out alive. He was the only one, though. Wu stares at the boat. I could still hear Lockjaw screaming as the ghouls took him down. When the 162s wanted something, they did not play. Anyway, all of that was just lead up. He lets out a long, slow breath. But still, it still speaks to my state of mind that night. Why I wouldn't back down when Raymond met us at the door. Neither one of you would budge. We both had the strength of the righteous. You and I had broken his rules out of loyalty, out of gratitude. He just didn't get that. He never understood where we came from. And now we know why. He wasn't just some do-gooder who took in street kids, he was a rich guy trying to get his way. That's what made him so furious. It's the way I see it too. But you were able to get him to calm down and see reason. Get him to see my side of the story. And all you said was that one thing. That thing that he said his mother used to say to him when he was being obstinate. What the hell was it? Oh wow, we get to choose what his mother used to say to him. Let's see. Most people do not listen to the intent. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. He understands badly who listens badly, or listen to what you know instead of what you fear. Listen to what you know instead of what you fear. Listen to what you know instead of what you fear. Wu nods his head, remembering. Yeah, that what you fear thing really got him. Still not sure why. Using his mother words on him really did the trick. Wonder what kind of childhood he had. He rubs his chin. But the way he looked at you after that, we were never the same. Yeah, well, look at you. Look, you and I are cool now. As for Edward saying, maybe he's got mommy issues. Wu chuckles humorously. And who knows? Maybe I've got a few daddy issues to deal with too. Guess I should try to keep an open mind when we see him. Let's talk later. Anytime. Yeah, that's actually, we're getting actual closure with these people at the last second here. Probably a good chance to look into leveling up our final skills. Rector. Ooh. See, is a gun for Koshei. Firearm systems are augmented to additional heavy laser mount. 4 additional HP damage, 1 AP damage, and has 5% accuracy. Wow, that's a big deal. And you can do it every other turn for 1 action. Mangler, Rip and Tear, strips away armor. I'm gonna go with the crazy laser. Absolutely. Does it affect his upgrades at all? On that side scroll? No, it doesn't. Okay, that's always standard. So he's getting 1 body, 1 intelligence, 1 ranged combat, 1 drone control, 1 pistol, 1 drone combat. Okay. Gaichu. Body strength, close combat, dodge, edged, all that stuff. I can go with Red Samurai Whirlwind. Gaichu gains a katana attack that can hit adjacent enemies for 2+ damage. Cannot do AP damage. Cooldown of 2. It doesn't actually say it costs AP. Huh. Probably does though. Ghoul, regenerate. Ability that lets them regenerate 6 HP per round for 3 rounds. Oh wow. That's a pretty big deal of a self-heal. I think I'm gonna go with that. AoEs are really situational, but having the ability to heal 18 HP over the course of 3 rounds, especially the fact that wow, he can actually stack that because its cooldown's shorter than its duration. It only costs 1 AP. That's the biggest selling point, is the fact that it only costs 1 AP, so I can use it like throughout the fights to continually heal. It means I can be more reckless with that character in combat. Duncan. Lethal Force. Gets a magnetic cyber arm installed, allowing him to throw back incoming grenades. Jesus. That's super situational though. Also, it involves freaking replace his arm just so you can throw grenades back? I don't know about that. Gas grenade. Crowd control. What was the other one called? The other one was called Shiwaze magnetic arm. So the gas grenade, minor HP damage, but creates yep, AP damage. I'll take the crowd control. That's one of the best things about this character, is his really good crowd control. Isabel, sabotage. Mini launcher now strips away 1 armor. That's not very much armor to remove, considering how often I use the mini launcher, which is not often. Pain suppression. Whenever she's in the Matrix, attacks in her physical body are reduced by 3 damage. Huh. I'll take that. I'm not psyched about either of those skills necessarily, but I'll take the idea of making her less vulnerable to damage if she jacks in, over getting 1 armor reduced to on a gun I don't really use. Shaman, haste. Ooh, make it better. Increase your friendly target's AP by 1 for 4 rounds. Is that more? Is it 2 rounds before, I think? When cast, Gobbet's accuracy is increased for 4 rounds. That's great. Spirituality. Consumes spirit. Gobbet can now consume spirits and imbue herself with their power. Consuming a spirit heals Gobbet for 20 hit points for 2 rounds. And her AP is increased by a little bit. Let's make haste better. That's my favorite skill with her. Am I misreading that previous skill? Okay, just want to make sure. It's 6 HP per round for 3 rounds. Wanted to make sure I wasn't mixing up with this other language about over the course of 2 rounds. So I think that means that it's going to be 10 hit points per round for 2 rounds. Anyway, I think I've made my decisions. Confirm. Everyone's nice and leveled then. Everyone has now hit their cap. It's a big deal. Alright, last 2 people are down here, Gaichu and Rector. I think I've pretty much exhausted most of their backstories and stuff, so I don't know how much detail we'll get here. But at the very least, I can talk to Rector about the last mission. I'm sure he'll have the usual input that everyone always gives, because every single person's always like, oh, you know you did that thing, but you really, I don't know, maybe we should have done the other thing. Like the cast of Life is Strange or something. I get the feeling that they almost always say that, no matter what you do, or I just unanimously pick the same options that are always encountered to my entire team, who has a hive mind and never disagrees. Anyway. Again, the shop is quiet, no hammering of metal, no whine of heavy machinery, nothing but the sound of your own footsteps and the low electrical hum of Rector's work terminal. The monitor above the work desk is alive with vibrant imagery, graphs, technical readouts, and reference images fill the screen. He looks up at you, his face bathed in blue light from the display. Ah, hello again, my friend. Back for more answers. I can take the time to talk if you can. Any thoughts on last run? Ah, betrayal, it never fails to sting, does it? Koschei shifts its posture slightly, its articulated pedipalps weaving. A subject that I am rather intimately familiar with, I'm afraid. I cannot understand why you reward Tigath for his role in our betrayal. Awarding him the data is not what I would have chosen to do. Given my choice, I'd have ordered Koschei to tear out his spine. He offers you a shrug and a half smile. Then again, that's why you're in charge, I suppose. I can be impulsive when it comes to matters such as these. Better that you use the level head of yours to keep our reputation untarnished. Now, what do you have for me? I want to continue our discussion from last time. There are some loose ends we need to tie up. Yes, my friend, I suppose there are. Go ahead and ask your questions. And let us see where your inquiries take us. Last time we spoke, you told me that essence loss didn't hurt you. I want to know why. Yeah, I did tell you that, and I do owe an explanation. He turns his head slightly, peers at you through the corner of his eye. Tell me, friend. What do you know about the essence lost? What do you know about essence loss and its effects on metahuman psyche? Losing essence kills a part of you. The more cyberware you get, the more detached you become from reality. He nods. Ah, yeah, that's right. And this detachment can be deeply traumatic from the sufferer. The literature is full of such cases. He levels his gaze, focuses on your face. There's a smile on his face, but his eyes are devoid of warmth. Now, what would you say if I told you that after my accident and subsequent cyber surgery, I felt no difference at all? That even in the beginning, I was completely unchanged? I'd ask you why. Or if you knew why. I do, in fact. What would you like to know? That's why I asked. I was born with what society has deemed a psychological defect. Out of fear of social repercussions, I have spent most of my life hiding it. I still hide it even now. The lessons of my childhood were not wasted on me, and I know the value of reputation. But since the accident, I have come to recognize the quirk for what it really is. A selective advantage. This defect, did it have a name? Absolutely. I was diagnosed with as a primary psychopath at the age of 8. Alright. We've hinted at this. Koschei scuttles forward, brushing up against Rector's leg, metal on metal, separated by a thin layer of cloth. The drone's many eyes focus on you, rising wide enough and bathing you with a dull red glare. So Koschei is his psychopathic nature in robot form. Well, diagnosed is probably not the correct word. There's no formal diagnosis of psychopath in DSM, but all the markers were there. I displayed a complete lack of empathy on the Davis Interpersonal Reactionary Index and scored a perfect 40 on the PCLR. A blood test showed that I had inherited a damaged gene that has been linked with aggressive behavior, and the activity level of my ventromedical prefrontal cortex is vanishingly low. Like autism, psychopathy is a spectrum, not a singular disorder. He dips his head, smiling. But I am definitely on that spectrum. You say that psychopathy is a spectrum, so where are you on that spectrum, Rector? Before I turned to the shadows, I considered myself a pro-social psychopath. That is to say, I had the markers of psychopathy, and I expressed some of the expected behaviors, but I never killed anyone, at least not until it became a job requirement. Now, I'm not so sure. I'll admit that there is a certain thrill to the profession. It's been quite liberating, being paid to hunt and kill other men. But I only indulge these appetites when I'm on the job, and I never bring my work home with me. I'm sure this all comes to great shock to you, but I tell you my condition is actually an advantage. One that protected me from the mental trauma of my accident and subsequent reconstruction. The psychological blow of essence loss can be devastating. Trauma is ultimately responsible for much of the damage and self-destructive behavior suffered by those who ride the razor's edge. Of course, there is a physical limit to how far the metahuman body can be pushed, but the normal person will reach his mental breaking point far into the advance of this. The loss of self, the loss of capacity is too painful to bear. But you didn't hit the breaking point. No, I did not indeed. I am quite certain that my breaking point does not exist. What does it matter to me if my capacity for empathy and conscience is stripped away? I never possessed either of these qualities in the first place. All this time you've been calling me my friend. Does that word even mean anything to you? Of course it does. The word has always carried a cerebral meaning. I can understand the concept of friendship and what it means to others. I know how important that feeling is, even if I can't experience it myself. People with my condition, my advantage, are not incapable of bonding with others. The only difference is that we do so on a cerebral level rather than an emotional one. I enjoy our association, and I recognize the advantage in our being allies. I like talking to you. What better reason for us to be friends? Okay, you say your mental condition protected you from trauma of essence loss. Got any proof of that? I have myself, my own experience. Oh great, scientific fucking data sample of one person. That's gonna help us a lot here. Nearly all of my essence was stripped away in a single stroke, and I didn't even notice. What more do you need? Actual proof. Your subjective experience doesn't qualify. No, I suppose not. But I know it to be true, all the same. My hypothesis makes good sense. I have never possessed the sense of humanity, and others hold so dear. If having it stripped away is traumatic, then it stands to reason that I would be protected from that trauma. I would be protected from that trauma. Isn't it possible that other factors could have come into play? Yes, of course, but this explanation seems the most likely, does it not? I am certain that in time, I will be proven right. More certain of it than I have been of anything. Call it a matter of faith, I suppose. I dislike the term, but it applies. If that's the way you want to play this, then fine. But don't expect me to buy into your belief system that isn't based on facts. A fair point, and a fair criticism. In time, I will endeavor to show you the proof of my beliefs. Until then, think of me as you would any other member of the team. Gobbet has a rat, I have this. It is mine, and you cannot take it from me. I don't know how much I like the idea of continuing working with a psychopath. He wags his finger at you, scoffing. Come, my friend, you know what we do for a living. We are violent criminals. We hunt people for money. Hurt people for money. That's what shadowrunning is. I mean, you've got a point. Exactly. So what's there to be upset about? Do not judge me for what I am, handyman. I may have been born without the capacity for empathy, but that doesn't make me any more monster than you, or Duncan, or anyone else in this boat. If you disagree with me, you should probably quit running the shadows and find less violent profession. Something with, like package delivery, perhaps. These stimulus generators you've been implanted with, how do they work? Technology is rather akin to SimSense, but considerably more powerful and flexible. Most SimSense experiences, those found in BTL chips for example, are structured around basic narratives that provide their users with context, but if you strip away the veneer of escapist fantasy, what you have left is an extremely powerful toolkit. And what have you done with this toolkit? He shrugs. A little of this, a little more of that. I have toyed with a number of brain's basic neurochemical functions, stimulating the experience of peer bonding by stimulating the flow of simulating the experience of peer bonding by stimulating the flow of oxytocin, for example. But I must be careful not to overstep my bounds. Reprogramming the brain is a risky endeavor. However great the temptation may be. Ever heard of anyone else getting these implants? I know of a handful of other recipients. From what I've heard, the others were driven quite mad. To be handed control over I've read this entire dialogue before, haven't I? Let's see. Ever considered you're already insane? Let's see. So what else have you been keeping from me? Sure, we'll talk tomorrow. Yeah, that's the... I had that entire conversation with him already, and I realized... Whoops! Yeah, Rector's dialogue seems especially buggy. Hey! Was that door closed before? I don't remember if that door closes normally. Rector's dialogue seems a little buggy, because... He wouldn't admit that he was a Shadowrunner, but then he was like, just at one moment he was suddenly just totally admitting he was a Shadowrunner, even though he wasn't not previously admitting he was a Shadowrunner, because it came back later and he just flat out like skipped a step in his dialogue, and now he's like repeating old dialogue. Weird. Hey Gaichu. I hate to break it to you, Gaichu, but you might be the least interesting person on this boat. My conversations with Gaichu haven't amounted to the most thrilling conversations, besides just the idea of him becoming a, there's the brief story about how he became a ghoul and how his crew hunted him, but aside from that, it's been kind of boring. Lots of folklore. The cabin is silent aside from the occasional swish of air as Gaichu steps through sword forms. He holds each stance for a few seconds, practicing a give and swing a few times before switching to the next. Hello, handyman. A single bead of sweat rolls down Gaichu's temple as he holds his position. After a few moments, he shifts to his relaxed stance, starting the form again. I'm a little surprised that they sweat, frankly. Pardon me for continuing my exercises. I feel that I have been letting them slip of late. You worried you're getting rusty? No, that is not quite it. Rather, I wish to learn to bring my enhanced strength and speed to bear. In order to do so, I must ensure that my blindness does not hinder me. Perfection is a journey, not a destination. Gaichu lifts his sword, offering its edge fist first toward you. Do you see that edge? Forged by one of the finest swordsmiths in modern Japan, diamond-coated edge, capable of cutting even the most hardened ceramic armors. But what good is a sharpened edge without precision to apply it? When I was still a man, I would have cut a single pea in half with my closed eyes. Oddly, after becoming blind, I cannot replicate this feat. Running the back of a claw along the blade's surface, Gaichu smiles thinly. I think soon I will be able to perform this feat again. I simply have to train my body to ignore the senses that it no longer has and pay attention to the new ones. Also, it has to pay attention to having a different speed and strength than it used to have. What do you want to discuss? Was it difficult learning to fight while blind? It's not the easiest thing I have attempted, but neither is it the hardest. Placing the sword on one side, Gaichu turns to face you. Emptiness is form, is one of the great lessons of the Hagakure. Train sufficiently, and both swordsmanship and obedience will come instinctively. That is the closest to perfection a man can attain. I don't put a lot of stock into being obedient. Gaichu feigns surprise. A lawless Shadowrunner have problems with authority. My goodness. I never would have guessed such a thing to be the case. When I was new to the unit, I thought that to be a good samurai was the ultimate goal, that to serve justly with dedication was the greatest honor a warrior could have. We were all young and foolish once, I suppose. What changed your mind? Beyond my disease? There was a fight in the Fukuoka. My former team ambushed me. It was a singular effect on my worldview. We were taught that we were superior to everyone, that since we were pure humans and Japanese, we would always win. I believe that most never question the validity of this claim, even when confronted with direct evidence to the contrary. Tell me about the ambush. Very well. Gaichu draws his nails over his scalp, sighing. My time with the Fukuoka was tense. Since leaving Kaihanshin, there we go. Since leaving Kaihanshin, I had been careful to stay out of sight by moving on foot or in the back of the automated delivery vans. I was running out of food, however, and need to be in a city for that. Fukuoka was big enough to get lost in, but not so large that a ghoul sighting could go unnoticed. I hid in abandoned buildings and storm drain systems for 2 weeks. I managed to stay hidden. The strain of having to move constantly was wearing on me, however, and I made one mistake. What happened? I had to get out of Japan, but all of my contacts in Fukuoka had come up empty-handed when I asked them for a way to China. I was running low on money, and I could feel the team catching up with me. A contact of mine at the Kumamoto owed me a favor and arranged a passage for me if I could reach the city in 48 hours. Gaichu closed his eyes, resting his face in one palm. If I had taken my time, I could have made it to Kumamoto without incident, but I let caution slip when I got this email. I thought if I disguised myself, I could take the train there, get it before my unit got any closer to finding me. I still don't know how they found me, magical tracking perhaps, or simply a well-developed spy network. Regardless, they found me. They were waiting for me at Hakata Station. It was an ambush. What'd they do? I had taken steps to disguise myself as best I could, relying on sheer number of people to conceal my presence. I suspected the team might attack when I was in public, but I did not realize just how expendable the civilians were. When they blew the C4 charges over the station's western entrance just to box me in, I realized how much I had underestimated them. I assumed that a train had derailed, honestly, but then I smelled the telltale acrid vapor of explosives. Gaichu wrinkled his nose in the memory. Once you smell it, you never forget. The plastic explosive that we used had a particularly sharp odor like old cheese. Something to do with an olfactory taggant added to keep track of it stolen. I remember stumbling through the dust and debris, trying to find my way to the rail platforms. They attacked from all sides, using the confusion to strike at once. I could hear Ishida and Takagawa behind me. Amori and Sasaki charged out of an access corridor just ahead of where I had been standing. Sasaki threw a firewall down behind me, cutting off retreat, while Amori started firing. Alright, here it comes, guys. We get to find out who died, because he said he killed 2 of them when they fought. It's a nasty situation to be caught in. One of the worst. Confined space, facing a mage and a heavy gunner. Those are losing odds, even if the attackers are ordinary mercenaries. I did the only thing I can think of. I charged Amari and Sasaki. They were only 15 meters away from me. The only advantage I had was that they were as blinded by the dust as I was, but I could still hear and smell them. Sasaki threw a lightning bolt at me, but I managed to roll under it. As I came up, Amari's light machine gun was swiveling down. I felt time stretch as I stared down the barrel. I caught Amari in the throat with the tip of my sword. It was the maneuver I'd practiced hundreds of times before. There was no resistance as I cut through the trachea. He fell as I rolled to the side. I could hear him choking for breath as he dropped. Gaichu exhales a humorless laugh and shakes his head. It is strange to think of how clear that memory is, even now. When the adrenaline is pumping, you form memories with more clarity. Certainly, that is true, but I remember that strike so clearly for an entirely different reason. It was in that strike I realized who I truly was. What did it matter? What did it mean that I, an infected monster that was less than a beast, could still defeat the finest soldiers in the world? Red Samurai Doctrine told Amari and the others not to fear me, and this overconfidence would be their death. I realized I had progressed beyond their ability to understand. My sword was as accurate as ever, but they could not account for it due to ideological blindness. Other units, let's see. That's the danger of letting ideology overrule facts. Precisely. All those years, I was worried I was not good enough to be a member of the Red Samurai, that somehow they had been pulling my weight, but I had been blind to all the ways in which we were not training, or had been avoiding the harsh truths about our own abilities. We were so often told that our own excellence that I wondered if we had truly been tested. Sasaki was the next to fall. As I turned away from Amori, I realized that she must have seen me strike him. Her eyes went wide, and I could feel her fear and anger as she tried to summon another spell. She seemed caught between healing Amari and attacking me. Gaichu taps himself on the forehead just above the right eye. It was there, on Sasaki, a downward stroke from the Jordan stance. She had hesitated just as Amari had. I felt the breath go out of her, like someone had deflated a tire. She just slid down in a pile. I think she was trying to ask me how, when I ran. What about Ishida and Takagawa? We already know that they lived because he said he killed 2. My goal was survival, not victory. Takagawa was too far away and I did not see Ishida. I only smelled him, so I ran. The trains had been shut down due to the explosion, but as long as I could get out of Hakata Station, I knew I could escape. They did not follow me out of the city proper. From what I heard via the Matrix, the event was reported as a terrorist attack and was thwarted by brave Renraku soldiers. Good Gaichu snorts, lip curled downward. Brave, foolish soldiers. If you killed 2 of them, why are they still hunting you? Gaichu does not answer immediately. He seems uneasy about the question, fidgeting with his fingers. I am unsure why that would make a difference. Can you explain what you were driving at? Let's see. If you train with your unit so extensively, wouldn't it be impossible to replace the ones you've killed? Ah, I see. I think your mistake is seeing this as a practical perspective. The problem is emotional, not mechanical. Folding his arms over his chest, Gaichu continues to explain. The nature of the Red Samurai assignments is such that losses are generally 0, or the entire team. In those rare cases where Red Samurai teams suffer partial loss, the remnants of the impacted teams are shuffled together and undergo retraining. Sasaki and Amaru will undoubtedly be replaced. The problem is that I cannot be replaced. Simply put, I am not dead. Ordinarily, a missing Red Samurai would be considered dead for purposes of reorganizing teams, but Renraku knows precisely what happened to me. What's more, my failure to do my duties reflects badly on the unit. Others will undoubtedly resist joining my former squad, as it has been tainted. So until they kill you, nobody wants to join the club. Gaichu nods his assent. Yes, that is the case. They cannot move forward and rebuild the core of the unit until I die. Both because of their own expectations and the stain on their honor. Even if they accepted my decision, the rest of the samurai would not. They have to hunt me down. They would have hunted me in Japan, Shanghai, and Beijing. And now, I am certain they hunt me here in Hong Kong. The cycle will continue endlessly for the foreseeable future. Such is the way of things. You sound trapped in the past as they are. What do you mean by that? They have been hunting me. I am simply trying to make my new life for myself. I fail to see how this is my doing. You're simply letting them come after you. Take the fight to them. Gaichu pulls back as if you slapped him. What do you suggest? That I hunt them down while they sleep and murder them in cold blood? You define yourself by your opposition to your old life. What? Blinking a few times, Gaichu leans closer to you. I am unsure that I am clearly understanding your meaning. Can you explain yourself more clearly? Think about it. You will get to live as the Ronin Red Samurai, unfairly cast out by his unit. Ah, you believe that absent of opposition I would have little to define myself. It's a very cheap philosophy, handyman. Is unworthy of you. Prove me wrong. Who are you without your unit? Drawing himself up and puffing his chest, Gaichu glares at you. You tell me. What do you see? I am the creature that stands in front of you. What is it I am, in your opinion? That's a cop-out and you know it. And your insistence upon labels is a weakness. Why must you name a thing in order to understand it? You claim I am nothing without my unit, yet you cannot answer a simple question. I am. I exist. That has the truth and some total of meaning in it. There exists no objective, external force to impose meaning and value on our lives. How I choose to survive is a facet of my life. But it is not the totality of it. I seek to perfect myself, my skills, my abilities in combat. Perhaps that is not the path I would have walked when I was younger. But I have been a soldier for too long that I cannot imagine devoting myself to any other trade. This does not mean I am tied inextricably to my unit. It simply means I am shaped by my history, as we are all. What does perfecting yourself mean to you anyway? I do not know. I am certain that sounds like an evasion, but it is not. There is no roadmap for being a ghoul who is also a freelance killer. I only know that my instincts are stronger now than they were when I was an ordinary man. Because of this, I must learn to make my own way to the world. There is no older teaching for me to reach for. Gaichu suddenly cocks his head. Is this why you were concerned about my history as a Red Samurai? It's hard to break old training, especially in times of crisis. True. The entire purpose of extensive training is to have something to fall back on when reason and logic fail, or one would be too slow. I am no longer simply a man. This is a fact of my life. I am beyond that. I do not know if I am better for it, but I know that I am different for it. The fact that I am different, however, cannot be denied. I put a question to you then. If you had been changed into a ghoul, what would you do? How would you improve yourself and learn to live with your condition? I have no idea. That's a road I can't even possibly consider. I've never been in your position. Fair point. That's why I struggle with it. I know that I must eat, how I must what I must eat, how I must live. The changes are not physical. As I mentioned before, they're not only physical. My mind is more instinctive now, and reasoning is more difficult. I tend to react quickly, without thought. That also generally will turn its tide in my favor. Wow. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm marathoning this a little too much in one sitting. I need to take a break because my mind's starting to melt from reading aloud for so long. I didn't expect this bottom floor's dialogue to be quite this long, I guess. Gaichu squares himself, nodding several times as if agreeing with his own internal dialogue. Warriors must learn to push their body and soul to the utmost limit. So too it is with me, but my body and soul are no longer that of a man, and I must learn to use these differences as an advantage rather than a handicap. Perfection is not a destination, it is a journey. One must strive to become the purest form of oneself that one can be. So what will you do about your unit when they come looking for you in Hong Kong? I'm unsure. You've given me a great deal to consider, and I do not take that lightly. I do not mean that lightly. There are several actions and possible outcomes I must foresee. I could, as I have done before, relocate to another city, flee Hong Kong, travel to somewhere further afield, Lagos perhaps, or Montreal. It would have to be to some place where Renraku's influence was minimal, where the unit's presence would be immediately noticeable. This has been my plan of action in the past. I could also keep a low profile, staying here, hope that they aren't able to find precisely where I'm hiding. Undoubtedly, Ashita would command the team to keep moving. I believe that it would only be a matter of time before they found me. But if it were a sufficiently long time, they might be recalled. If I could confront them, I could also confront them, draw them out into the open, at a time and place of my choosing. They are nothing if not predictable in their efforts to follow Red Samurai operational doctrine. That plan would succeed, but I could also put you and civilians at risk, and I'm unsure how I would draw them out in the first place. You need to find a way to fight them. We've already established the fact that their own weakness is their weakness is their uncertainty, their inability to act like like he's a person. So if he attacked, they wouldn't be expecting it. They think he's a beast, basically. That's how two of them died last time. Gaichu sighs, shoulders slumping a little. I'm unsure if that's the wisest course of action. I'm going to need time to think about this a great deal. Let me think of this. I'll answer you later. I'll talk to you later. Gaichu, there isn't a later anymore. Can I just talk to him again? In the darkness of the cabin, Gaichu is hunched over a pile of keepsakes. He has unpacked most of the box, and the contents are lying strewed around the floor in a disorganized mess. The ghoul gingerly picks through them, turning each of one of them over in his fingers as he feels their shapes. He addresses you without looking up. Mind your step, handyman. I fear I have made a mess, and many of my possessions are quite delicate. I would be rather upset if you were to accidentally crush any under your feet. After a moment, he places the one he holds, a small ceramic statuette of Daruma, to one side. Lifting his face, he touches his brow in salute. I apologize for the mess. I'll try not to step on anything. For that, I thank you. Gaichu gingerly begins collecting his things and arranging them back in the box. I am simply thinking about the chain of events that brought me to Hong Kong. I've been considering our talk about the former unit, and what my plans are, with regard to their incessant hunt and need for closure. I begin to think that I too need closure, an end not only to the hunt, but to our dance around the core issue. One of us must die. The other must live. As it is, we are locked in stasis. It needs to happen. He can move on with his life if we can take out his unit. Otherwise, they're going to keep chasing him until they eventually catch him, and then he probably takes them out anyway, judging by what happened last time. How do you plan to accomplish that? That is the question that I have bent my mind to answering since we last spoke. It is not an easy question to answer. My initial thought was to strike at a secure Renraku holding, something valuable enough to draw the attention of the Red Samurai to ensure that Renraku reported that a ghoul was involved in the mission. It turns out that was not necessary. I began searching the Shadowrun BBS for any jobs against Renraku holdings here in Hong Kong. Gaichu taps his braille reader with one toe. It is surprisingly easy to use the Matrix, when you can read postings with your fingers. Slower than direct interface, but certainly possible. I also began to offer a reward for information on Red Samurai teams known to be in the city. A modest reward, nothing that would attract too much attention, but enough to keep people interested. Gaichu grins thinly, cradling his chin in one hand. This bore fruit. A Red Samurai team arrived here a short time ago, smaller than normal size. Sounds like it could be them. It's definitely them. My contact describes Ishida and Takagawa perfectly, as well as a new heavy gunner, most likely from another disgraced squad. What's more, he described a woman who looked exactly like Sasaki, but with a scar here on her forehead. Oh, Sasaki's alive. Gaichu draws a finger down across his brow over the right eye, precisely where I cut her. Is this going to be a stand-up fight then? Gaichu cocks his head, giving you a look of confused disdain. Of course not. Why'd I be interested in a fight where I do not stack the odds in my favor? I have no intention of allowing even the slightest chance of victory. I will set an ambush, spring it, and eliminate them. All of them. I have found a job I am certain will draw the Red Samurai response. Renraku is moving a prototype drone through Hong Kong. On the way to a research facility in Chiba. It is of a new design, implementing a machine learning and pseudo-intelligence. Gaichu stands, smiling wryly. Something that advanced would certainly attract a Red Samurai team, should someone attempt to steal it. How can you be certain? Red Samurai are primarily proactive. The majority remain at the forge until dispatched across the world. But those that are not are assigned to guard high-value locations, black laboratories, secure research facilities, and major complexes. Hong Kong has none of these, as Renraku's facilities of that type are primarily located in Taiwan. My former unit will be the only ones close enough to respond to the threat. The Johnson for this run is a Renraku scientist escorting the drone. He wishes to leave Renraku's employ, but is unwilling to risk reprisal should he escape on his own. To put it simply, he wishes to make it look like he was killed during a robbery, hence why he wishes the experimental drone stolen. If there's no body, there will be no investigation into his whereabouts. So we can kill two birds with one stone. Precisely. I can rid myself of pursuers, and he can be free of their yoke. While I owe this man no loyalty, I think I understand his sentiment. Besides, we will be receiving payment for the job. Sounds good to me. When do we leave? As soon as you are ready. I will message Mr. Johnson and let him know that we are prepared to fake his murder, and to be ready on the arrival. I suggest you prepare as well. The Red Samurai are excellent combatants. Do not be taken lightly. Not to be taken lightly. There we go. Wow. Looks like we're gonna have a new side quest after all. We were able to unlock the companion mission for Gaichu. Definitely stopping here. Holy shit. This might be a super long. This has to be a super long episode. I feel like I've been talking for like an hour and a half. Thanks for watching, guys. Like always, sorry if I sound ragged. I was expecting a quick roundup of some characters and got bit off more than I could chew for one episode. I'll see you next time. I'm gonna take a break.